way will be done. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meeting Act. Oh, thank you, recording. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meeting Act is available for audience members. Additionally, there's a copy of all reproducible written material that will be discussed available for examination and copying by members of the public pursuant to the provisions of the Open Meeting Act. Okay, let's start with roll call. Debbie or Cindy, you're doing it.
Yeah. Sherry Hofshire.
Here.
Brian Botsford.
Here.
Zachary Cheek.
Here.
Brenda Davis.
Here.
Michelle Dudley.
Here.
Crystal Dunning.
Here.
Janet Goranson.
Here.
John Gross.
Here.
Karen Harris.
Here.
Julie George Jacobson.
Here.
Clark Holterman. There. Mark Laughlin.
Here.
Clark Roush.
Here.
Jeannie Salerno.
Here.
And James Wright.
And Clark Holderman is there.
Okay, perfect.
No, we don't have James Wright. Not yet, anyway. All right, the first thing is approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Who moved that?
Julie.
Julie. Okay, how about for the ease of all of us, since we don't see all of your pictures up there, when you, from now on, when you make a motion or second, would you please say your name? So
Sure.
we know. Thank you. Thanks, Julie moved and Jeannie seconded. A vote.
All right.
Approval.
I'm gonna have some formality here because of the drag time on the recording. So I'm gonna say both your first and last name. Sherry Hofshire.
Yes.
Brian Botsford.
Yes.
Zachary Cheek.
Yes.
Brenda Davis.
Yes.
Michelle Dudley.
Yes.
Crystal Dunning.
Yes.
Anna Goranson.
Yes.
John Gross.
Yes.
Karen Harris.
Yes.
Julie Jacobson.
Yes.
Clark Holterman.
Yes.
Mark Laughlin.
Yes.
Clark Roush.
Yes.
Woo!
Energy.
And Jeannie Salerno.
Here.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next item is introduction of guests and oral communication. And for the two people that are listed here, I have to amend this to say these are introduction of our partners, our colleagues, our collaborators, and our friends, because these two people are who the Arts Council works so closely with, and particularly right now, they're spending a lot of time. Okay, let's start with the Nebraska Cultural Endowment and Maggie Smith.
Sorry, I was still muted. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to this meeting today. It's always a pleasure to be with you all. Mike, I think that there was a slide before.
Yeah, it's my fault they're out of order.
No, it's okay. Oh, there we go. Great. So thank you all for inviting me. I always love being here, and I feel like the Cultural Endowment right now is very relevant to the Nebraska Arts Council and Humanities Nebraska, as we all work through funding throughout this year and the next few years. I will say that I tried to keep this fairly brief, but I am open to questions. If anyone wants to ask anything, please feel free to. The first thing I have here is just an update on the private fund and the CPEF fund. As you all know, there are two funds that the Cultural Endowment draws from. The Cultural Endowment Fund that the State Investment Council manages, and then our private fund. So if you make a a donation to the endowment, it goes into our private fund, and then any matched funding goes into that state fund that is managed by the investment council. We always meet every February as a board at the Cultural Endowment to vote on how much we're going to distribute from our private fund to Nebraska Arts Council and Humanities Nebraska. And we did have that meeting on February 21st, and our board voted to distribute 4.5% of the private fund earnings between both of those organizations. And our private fund total drawdown for that is going to be around $750,000. And we will be distributing that to the Arts Council and Humanities Nebraska in the next week or so. And because we have not had any CPEF earnings yet this year to draw from, we do not have any drawdown from that this year. And I know Mike is going to talk about that a little bit later in the meeting. As far as the stability fund, you all might have heard us in the past few years talking about the stability fund. It was a way for us to sort of divert excess earnings from CPEF into a fund that the Cultural Endowment held in a private account. And we have, and Mike might talk about this a bit later too, but the Finance Committee at the Cultural Endowment, as well as the leaders of the Arts Council, myself, and Humanities Nebraska have voted to end the management of that stability fund. And short-term, we just agreed to distribute those funds entirely at the beginning of this year. And moving forward, all of those CPEF, and again, that's the fund that is managed by the State Investment Council, will be distributed in full. So that just means that both of these organizations will get the full amount of earnings every year, and they can make that decision themselves how to save if they want to for a rainy day or whatnot, but it's no longer going to be managed by the Cultural Endowment. But because we had over $400,000 saved in the Stability Fund, we are going to be distributing that to both organizations again in the next couple of weeks. And the numbers there are, show you how much is going to get distributed to each organization. So I'll just pause here and ask if there are any questions before we move to the next slide. Okay, great. Mike, you want to move us to that? Great. And so as far as the Cultural Endowment goes, you all know that we have a $1 million a year commitment from the state of Nebraska until 2030 to match $1 million in private funds with $1 million in funds from the legislature. And it looks like, from what we've heard and everything that we're hearing from our friends, our lobbyists, that we currently remain in that budget. There is always the risk, because that $1 million is in the budget every year. There is a risk that can be, the legislature can decide not to commit to that every year. And especially in a year like this, we are a little bit worried because there are a lot of cuts being made, but we do feel like, hopefully, knock wood, that that $1 million is going to stay in the budget for this year. Any sort of change to that, we are alerted to by our lobbyists and Nebraskans for the Arts, and we all stay very close on that. And if anything happens, we'll make sure and let everyone know. But it looks like that match is going to remain in the budget. We do also want to support the Arts Council in every way when it comes to testimony to the importance of the state government funding the Arts Council. And Mike and I did have a conversation, and normally the Cultural Endowment would testify every year to say just how wonderful the Arts Council is and how important it is to fund them. But because there is this extra ask this year around the creative districts, we agreed that my testimony was not as relevant as supporters from creative districts and whatnot. So I'm going to, hopefully, unless this weather gets crazy, which it sounds like it's going to, I plan on being there tomorrow afternoon just to show my support and to sit in and maybe take up a seat, maybe just stand in the hallway, but at any rate, just be there to show my support. And I believe that there are quite a lot of other folks that are coming to testify that I think will be more relevant this year for this particular topic. In terms of what the endowment is doing right now, we have talked, at least I've mentioned to many of you in the last couple of meetings about an impact study that we have privately raised money for. So it's not coming out of the endowment. It's all being raised by private funders, and the Sherwood Foundation is one of our biggest funders right now, to show the impact of investing in arts and culture in communities all across Nebraska. Basically showing like when you invest in these communities, these amazing things happen. And we have been working with UNO on creating this research proposal, and it has been really exciting to see that moving forward. And a big shout out to the funders like the Sherwood Foundation that have made that happen. So the study is beginning, and we're going to have a lot more information throughout this year, and then hopefully in 2026 start rolling out the results that we're finding. And we also are planning a 2-day gathering of an advisory type committee in November, which will include funders and community partners. Obviously, Mike will be invited, and his team, and Humanities Nebraska. And at that point, we're going to review the preliminary findings of this study, and then discuss how best to package and release. And I just want to say, you know, my real objective at the end of this is that there be some sort of tool, multifaceted tool, but a way for people, large organizations, small little community organizations, to bring forth to their municipalities, to their donors and whatnot, a package of information that shows how when you invest in arts and cultures in the community, the economy gets better, there are more jobs, amazing things happen to the health of those communities. So part of what that advisory committee in November is going to do is ask these folks from all across Nebraska, how can we take this data and these case studies that we're working on and really package them up in a way that you can speak to every different type of funding that you are going after, to say, this is why it's important you do this. Arts and culture aren't just a nice to have thing. They are actually stimulating economies and communities across the state. And then finally, we did have a strategic planning process last year. Every board meeting we met, we had Mission Matters join us and help facilitate some meetings where our board got together, and we presented a final report in our February meeting. Some of the highlights from that strategic, it wasn't really typical strategic planning. We know what our strategy is. We want to raise the money and guard the money and distribute the money. But a few of the key takeaways were that we wanted to maintain a really robust and activated board. We wanted to make sure our board understood what being an advocate for arts and humanities in Nebraska really means. And we also felt it was really strong, a really strong part of this, to make sure that we were diversifying our funding. A lot of the funding in Nebraska comes from particular set of sources, and we want to be able to branch out and say, where can we find other funding that will continue to increase the endowment and make it more and more strong, and therefore create a lot more opportunities to diverse more money to these two organizations that mean so much to our cultural stability in Nebraska. So that's really the updates that I have, but I, again, happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions, comments for Maggie? Well, thanks, Maggie. That was very thorough and very well explained. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I always appreciate being here.
Okay. All right. Nebraskans for the Arts. Lance, I bet you're taking lots of vacations because you've got so much free time right now, right?
Oh, yes, exactly. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And again, thank you for inviting me to come and just share a little bit about what we're doing here to support you. So yeah, it's been a busy couple months, and I think we'll have a little bit more busy time here coming forward. I'll have you maybe go to the next slide, and we'll talk about some of the bills we're looking at. From the Nebraska bills, LB 445, which was a construction bill, basically construction company bill on public buildings, but hidden in there was a clause to repeal the 1% for art. So we testified, obviously opposing that, and we'll give you a little more information about that here in a little bit. But on a positive note, LB 560, a bill introduced by Senator Duncan, was a tourism grant that was opening up opportunities for grant money for creative districts. So we testified in support of that, and that's actually moved out of committee. So we're going to be looking forward to that just going through the process at this point. But I'm going to have Mike jump in here and maybe because both these bills really impact the Arts Council. Mikey, if you want to provide any more input on those two.
Yeah, thank you, Lance, and thank you for all the work you've been doing with constituents and people across the state to get the word out about these two bills. LB 445 is evolving even as we speak. As Lance mentioned, we had a number of people go down and testify in opposition of the bill, or at least specifically a section of it that, as he mentioned, would eliminate the 1% for art program. We've had a number of conversations with Senator Van Gillern since that time, as late as yesterday. And he had, during the testimony, promised to add an amendment that would in some way address the fact that, as he said during the testimony, his mind had been changed that the 1% program was very valuable and we needed to have it in some form. We have not seen the amendment yet. The discussions that we've been having is what that amendment might say. Without putting too fine a point on it, Senator Von Gillern, the premise to the bill is that it is a budget saving measure. They want to reduce the amount of money that goes into capital construction. There are a number of elements of the bill, including the threshold for when a consultant was needed, that sort of thing. But the 1% section was also a matter of saving some money. So we have had conversations with him that might put a fine point on the qualifications for the 1% program. That might reduce the total expense of the program to the state, but still maintain the program. It is his contention, it's his thought that that he needs to be able to go to the governor with something that will indicate that we are interested in helping to refine the program as well. We have offered some of those clarifications to the program, and we are waiting to hear back from him. Our lobbyist, Corby Gilbertson, who stepped in for Walt Radcliffe, has really been carrying the ball for us on this and has been working directly with him. I've been in communication with him mostly late last night, but suffice it to say that he is shaping an amendment that would hopefully address the idea of maintaining the 1% for our program, but providing some different eligibility clarifications within the language of the law. What those are exactly yet is yet to be defined. My goal is to do as little damage to the program as possible and yet still maintain the program. That's really all I can say at this point. I just got a text from Corby saying that she and Von Gillern are in the same meeting this afternoon, and that she will let me know after she speaks with him where we stand. If I get that information before this meeting ends, I'll certainly let you know. I think that's what I know about that. If anybody has any questions or thoughts, I'd be more than eager to hear them. If
Mike,
not, yeah.
Mike, sorry, this is Mark Laughlin. Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, and did you just say that your you still believe that Senator Von Gillern is going to back off and issue an amendment to his own bill that says the 1% or most of that is going to stay in?
Exactly what the amendment will say is up for discussion. What he said at the testimony and what he told me on Arts Advocacy Day was that he had told the governor's office it won't pass in the current form, i.e. with that repeal language in it to get rid of 1%. So it's just a matter of what compromises both sides are willing to make in order to maintain the program, but yet provide some sign to the governor, I guess, that we are interested in shaving the program, perhaps might be the best way to do it.
Thank you. My last request is I may be meeting with Senator Von Gillern on other matters in the next week, 2, 3, 4 weeks. If you wouldn't mind, Mike, if you hear back from Corby, I don't need any kind of specific, ongoing updates, but if you could just let me know, just so I kind of know generally what's going on after this meeting. And I will obviously, if I hear anything or whatever, I'll do whatever I can to help and relay that back to you and the Arts Council.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that. Let me just say for the record that Von Gillern has been very good about the whole process. He clearly is carrying the water for the governor and the Department of Administrative Services on this. And he's been very good to converse with this. We'll see how the negotiation goes forward, but I will certainly let you know, and we'll see what I have to tell you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, I'll let you know where we stand with 560, which again was a piece of very good news. And it came on the same day as we learned about 445. And that was that Senator Dungan in a conversation with Megan at a birthday party voiced interest in supporting the creative districts. And so she and I met with him. That morning, I happened to have a conversation with our legislative financial assistant who indicated that tourism has cash fund money that they're not allowed to use. And so after discussion, he came up with this bill. They were not granted the appropriation level in order to be able to spend the money is basically what happened. So this bill freed up $500,000 of that cash fund for the use of originally for prioritized creative districts in this grant category. Subsequent conversations with tourism and their industry caused a change in the language to remove that prioritization so that any community can request the funds. And we were fine with that. The important thing is that the money's there. The creative districts already know about the fund. They've already applied for it and received it. This will just allow more of them to receive the fund. This is a very important bill because the premise of it is that you can use the funds for marketing purposes, and that can include marketing personnel, which is a lot of what many of the creative districts need. So as Lance mentioned, it got out of committee 8-0, which was very favorable. It is also estimated that this bill should make its way through floor votes because it is a non-contentious bill. It has no money tied to it. And they're looking for bills like that they can pass early on in the season. So we hold out hope for that. Then it will be a matter of working with our friends, our new friends at tourism to see how we can expand the grant program and work forward from there. So that's all very good news. And again, it has been a opportunity for us to work not only with our new friends in tourism, but with the tourism industry. One of the more interesting conversations I had was with the representative of the tourism industry after the hearing last couple weeks ago. And he voiced that he would be willing to help support the creative district cause in trying to find other funds, perhaps through appropriation or elsewhere. So he may be an ally going forward, and that's a positive step. So that's what I know about 560. Any questions about that one? I'll just mention that we have for tomorrow's hearing in front of the Appropriations Committee, we have a strong, lineup of people to testify if they can get there. I've had two people contact me already and say that they weren't gonna be able to, and because of anticipated weather, and so they provided letters. But the people who are coming, will all be testifying as to the economic worth and value of the program and what it's meant to their community. And so I anticipate that they will make an impact on the committee. So we'll see how that goes, and I'll be glad to answer any questions about that hearing as well. You can follow that one on the legislative website if you're so interested. Just go to the legislature's homepage and there's a icon for NET, and then just look up the Appropriations Committee hearing, and you can follow along that way if you're interested.
Okay, back to you, Lance.
All right, thank you. And thanks, Mike. Again, it's just great to have a real close partnership between all of our entities, the Cultural Endowment, the Arts Council, Humanities. We're all in this together, and some of us who went to the conference last fall, we all heard from other states that that's not the norm in other states, which I just can't believe. So it's really great that we are able to communicate and have game plans in place. So as it says there, I will go and testify on behalf of Nebraskans for the Arts in support of the Arts Council. And I'm going to take a different approach because we're really focusing on the creative district thing. I'm going to go in there and applaud all of the wonderful other programs that the Arts Council does for our state. So we'll be doing that. There are some various education bills also on the docket that we're just monitoring that will impact arts education. And they're not direct bills to arts education, but indirectly they could impact. And so again, we're kind of going through a teacher shortage right now, and so anything that will help promote people into the profession and keeping them in the profession is what we want. And then anything that can help support just keeping arts education moving forward is really important. So those are some of the other bills we're looking at. From the federal landscape, that it gets even a little bit more interesting. Working with the Americans for the Arts, and we're meeting quite regularly. Big thing is the National Endowment of the Arts and their grant opportunities. There was a webinar that I was on last week with Marianne Carter, and a lot of this being stemmed around DEI. And I've received a lot of phone calls from people on how to approach that. So she gave just how she explained some things, I think kind of helped maybe ease some angst, I think, in that area, whether that some of our entities that were receiving grants from NEA that may lose them because there might be something that might be considered DEI. But again, we need to continue to monitor that and see how that plays out in the weeks to come. There's a number of other things, as obviously the Department of Education is on the docket here as well, and what the future of that is. That could have a huge impact. Again, going back to how that's going to support arts education in general. So we're going to need to really pay attention to that. And there's a number of organizations that I'm also having conversations with at that level. So a lot to kind of keep an eye on there. And I know it can. The people that call me, that get really kind of upset about where things are going. I said sometimes we just have to take a step back and take a deep breath and keep listening and monitoring very closely. So that's kind of where we are with some federal landscape things. So any questions from anybody before we move to the next slide?
No, I would just clarify, Lance, that maybe not everybody knows that Marianne Carter has been named as the new head of NEA, the new chair, which is good in the sense that they've named somebody as chair. So hopefully that means they're not going to get rid of NEA, at least not right at the moment.
Right. Yeah. And at least, and she's got, I think she knows the value of the arts and how it's impacted even her kids. And so, So yeah, I think we'll just, again, like with everything, I think we just need to be listening very cautiously.
Yeah, let me just jump in and let you know that as Lance mentioned, the information or perhaps better, the lack of information from the national folks has caused some concern amongst constituents. We issued a letter to grantees letting them know that, yes, there were some changes to the federal grant guidelines, but that they were for the direct grants that went to organizations, and that the guidelines for state arts partnership grants, which is what we get, which is what our constituents get from us, has not changed. And therefore, all of our grants will maintain the way that they are. And that we have not, every time that they communicate, they let us know that as of now, there are no plans for change to the partnership grant in the coming year. All of that, of course, could change tomorrow. And we are prepared for that, but as of right now, that is the case. The other thing I want to convey to you is that as soon as the freeze happened back in January, we made provisions to draw down all of our funds for the year. So we have all of our federal funds through June 30th, and we are working with through Jennifer, the grant manager, to get those funds out to the organization so that they can stop worrying about whether they're going to receive the funds or not, and so that they can start doing some good. Again, what happens from here on out is up in the air, but as Lance said, there are positive signs that there is a director, that they did institute a new grant program, the US 250 grant program, and that they are making changes to the grant programs. All of those are indications that the NEA is not going away tomorrow. We'll see what that means, but that's the good news for now.
Okay, Lance, back to you.
All right, we'll go to the next slide, and we'll talk about some fun things here for a little bit. We'll get off the the bills. This is our 40th year in Nebraskans for the Arts. We've been around 40 years, believe it. We don't look a day past 20. But we had a governor's proclamation recognizing February 19th, which was our Arts Advocacy Day, as Nebraskans for the Day, Arts Day across Nebraska. So that proclamation was done earlier in February. So that was really nice. And then our new senator for District 7 here, he actually came to Arts Advocacy Day and presented that to all the attendees, which was great. We can go to the next slide, talking about Arts Advocacy Day. We had close to 100 people registered, but just like what's going to happen tonight, we had some winter weather and it was so extremely cold. But so only about half the people were able to attend. But the people who did come, I think we had a great time. I thought we actually had higher engagement with the senators this year than we did last year. You'll see a couple pictures there, and there's Senator Von Gillern right there talking to us. We also had Corby, our lobbyist, come and speak. That was kind of a last minute thing. The night before we had a reception, she was there and she said she could pop in. And that's something I think we're just going to do every year, because I thought that was very valuable for our attendees to hear her perspective of where we are in Nebraska. We introduced Jewel Rogers as a new state poet. She's fantastic. We also collaborated with the Nebraska Music Education Association. They always have music performances at the Capitol, and so we coordinated that. Our days lined up in February, so that was great. So we're looking forward to expanding on this next year.
I just want to add real quick, Dr. Nielsen. I saw the governor the very next day out here, and he had nothing but great things to say. The impression that you personally left on him. So,
oh, great.
Yeah, you sound surprised, but yeah,
I must have said something. He actually, when he introduced us, of course, does this every time, and Mike and I have talked about this a number of times. He loves talking about the Warner Chamber, and so. Yeah, when he was introducing, he kind of went on and on and on when we were doing our part. So that was good. That was good.
Yeah.
The next slide, some things. Nebraska Arts Award. This is an award we give to public schools or private schools that do wonderful things to support their fine arts program, and that just in one area, but abroad, music, art, visual art, and theater. So our two schools this year is O'Neill Public Schools and Osmond Community Schools. Will be going there and presenting their award sometime this spring. We're working with the Nebraska Department of Ed with our Arts Education Data Project. I know Ann will talk more about that probably later. Danielle Lorian, who's our president-elect, and Cody from the Department of Ed, they're on our education committee. They went around the state, and I mean around the state, to a lot of conferences, ESU, professional learning, providing a professional development on how to use advocacy to build their capacity in developing. So as educators, they want to develop a new program, or if they have a new initiative that they want to promote in their school or in their community, we're giving them basically the tools to do that. So they did a great job with that. And of course, Poetry Out Loud is coming up, and we help support NAC, and I know you'll learn more about that here a little bit later on in the meeting. Then the last thing I want to share with you real quick, so we can get you moving on to the rest of your agenda. And I'm going to slide this over. So in the chat, I'm actually going to send you a link. We are partnering with Americans for the Arts using their new action center called Quorum. And so now we have our own site. And I encourage all of you just to go on. If you go to that link or use the QR code there to take you there, there will be a little registration form there. You just fill that out, and that'll put you in. And anytime we have bills or we want to have some connection with our senators, we'll maybe send out some action alerts. Once you're in there on this site, you'll see my elected officials, those will be your elected officials based on your home address. There's a issues page, so you can see the bills that we're monitoring. And then the take action is where we have, if we do send out anything, there's 3 of them in there right now based on those 3 that we just talked about. And the most important thing is if you reach out and you email or call or meet with a state senator or someone at the federal level too, go in here and log that interaction, because that helps me to kind of know what kind of impact we're having and making connections. So there's a lot of resources on this page. We encourage you to look at that. We're hoping to build this as we go and get more people involved and being strong advocates for the arts. So are there any questions from anybody?
Okay, thank you very much, Lance. Let's move on then to the approval of the minutes from the last meeting in December 12th to be exact. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? All right, hearing none, we need a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
Zach will move.
Okay, Zach.
Karen.
Karen, second, okay. Cindy?
All right. Sherry Hofshire,
Yes.
Brian Botsford,
Yes.
Zachary Cheek,
Yes.
Brenda Davis,
Yes.
Michelle Dudley,
Yes.
Crystal Dunning,
Yes.
Janet Goranson,
Yes.
John Gross,
Yes.
Karen Harris,
Yes.
Julie Jacobson,
Yes.
Clark Coulterman,
Yes.
Mark Laughlin,
Yes.
Clark Roush,
Yes.
Jeannie Salerno. Yes. And James still isn't on, right? Is that correct?
Okay, then let's move on to financial. Jenna?
Yes, we held our meetings last week, and Cindy will give you the latest financial report.
Right, so I'm just giving a high level overview today. I went into more detail during the finance committee meeting, so if you have additional questions, you can always ask, of course. NAC's internal accounting reconciled with the state's accounting, published in the allotment status report. And all 3 programs totals agree with the appropriation summary as of January 31st. And as you can see there, program 326 has expended $541,050.36. Program 327 has expended $1,646,577.29, and program 329 has expended $766,941.26. Everything's where we expect it to be at this time of the year. So any questions on that?
Okay, then we need to vote approval of the financial report. We'll need a motion. Or do we need a motion?
Jana moves.
Okay, Janice moves. Is there a second?
Clark seconds.
Which Clark?
Oh, sorry, Roush.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Clark. All right, Cindy.
Sherry Hofshire.
Yes.
Brian Botsford.
Yes.
Zachary Cheek.
Yes.
Brenda Davis.
Yes.
Michelle Dudley.
Yes.
Crystal Dunning.
Yes.
Anna Goranson.
Yes.
John Gross.
Yes.
Karen Harris.
Yes.
Julie Jacobson.
Yes.
Clark Coulterman.
Yes.
Mark Laughlin.
Yes.
Clark Roush.
Yes.
Jeannie Salerno. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Cindy, for that report. And now I believe Mike is going to talk about CPEF projections.
Thank you, Jenna. And what I'm presenting is not in your packet, and actually the information was not available at the board meeting last week. One more, please. One more, please. There we go. This is a breakdown of the stability fund at the beginning of the year, and just a sort of a detail of what Maggie provided to you earlier. That we started the year with 300, it's also a recap of last year and how we got to where we are. We started with $314,734 last year. There was a distribution of that at 50%, and that was the 157,367. Then we had 4 more distributions throughout the year. That last one should show you December instead of October. Which meant that we were able to distribute the entire distribution limit of $875,000. When you took that, and then that left over that 157,367, plus the additional funds from that final drawdown that went into the stability fund. So at the end of the year, we had 416,319. As Maggie said, the actual stability fund had 421,000. This does not reflect the interest on the account because that's held with cultural endowment. So that 421,000 is what was Maggie was talking about, was just distributed, and that the stability fund is now dissolved, and from now on those funds will just go directly to ourselves and Humanities Nebraska. So that's a picture of how we got to where we are. And then what I want to provide you with is a picture of what we have and how that will affect our decisions going forward for next year. If you go to the next slide, please. This is a breakdown of what happened last year, what we have going on this year, which is the middle column, and then what that information provides us for what we anticipate for next year. And just looking at the middle column, you see that we started the year with in our reserves in NAC DC, $312,000. Then we had earnings of $345,000. Then that distribution there is the one that Maggie talked about, $294,964. That's what was just distributed here this month, which meant that we had total income of $640,303. And then you add that to what we had in the reserve, which meant that we had available for funding $932.305. We always hold back 20% for a rainy day, and so that means we have $761,844. We had budgeted this year because, if you remember, the last 2 years were pretty dry. Very conservatively, we only budgeted to distribute $214,000 of CPAP funds. We augmented that with, an additional, I can't do the math in my head. But in other words, the BSG CPAP payments, totaled $380,000. And the rest of that was made up with private funds from NAC DC. And we had the partnership grant. So a total CPAP distribution was $230,000 this year. That means that we had remaining in the account $531,844. Adding back in the reserve that we held back means that we start next year with $722,000. That final column then indicates that should we have a 5% interest return on our corpus, we should hope to bring in 525,000. That remains to be seen, but so we easily could have over $1 million in CPAP funds for next year. Given that, we are looking at making the same distribution to CPAP funds to the BSG organizations of $380,000. This time, though, would come entirely from the CPAP funds. We would not have to use the NAC DC reserves. And that's the intention of CPAP, so it's nice to be able to do that. The partnership grant, or contractual partnership grant that we always have with Nebraskans for the Arts. This, the additional funds that we would have going into next year would also allow us to use $15,000 for educational initiatives and $10,000 for special initiatives, which, if you remember, the CPAP fund is designed to be used not only for the BSG organizations, but for programs that have statewide impact in education and other statewide impact programs. And so with those additional funds, we believe we can start to utilize some of those CPAP funds to carry out that part of the mission of the program as well. And with all of that, provided that we do have some money coming in this year, we'd have $826,000. Even without that, we'd end the year with $301,000. So that's our projection that we'd be able to do this year with the CPAP funds. Again, this information was not available on last Tuesday for the board meeting. I just found out these numbers between then and now. So if you have any questions, if anybody has any questions about the projections, I'd be happy to answer them at this time. If not, that's the good news for the CPAP.
Thank you, Mike.
Anything else then on financial? That's it? Okay,
Thank you, Jana.
yes, thank you. Well, let's move on then to grants and artist programs. The first one up is the Creative Districts grants. You'll find the information on tab 3, the page 1 in your packets. I'll just point out, I chaired this committee, so I'll just point out a couple of comments, and here's the first sheet that you have. There were requests for approximately $2.3 million. There was only $1 million to give, which is the reason that Mike and the council has been scrambling to try to get money from tourism, to try to ask for this extra $1 million from the legislature, because we all know from the time that the Creative District started, we thought there would be, they could apply for their $10,000 and then go for a bigger development grant. Well, we've had to limit those development grants to $100,000, and now there are so many creative districts that only means 10 a year, and we already have over 30 that have been approved. So we need more money. That's why we're asking for more money. However, I guess what I'm saying is that this committee had a really tough time because there were a great many very, very good grants. It's a very extensive process just to get in the application to be a creative district. This application to get this money is even more expensive. The committee, Megan put together Rachel put together a very good committee made up of some Nebraska leaders who were very insightful. And it was a great committee. I would point out that the rubric looked at 20% with visitor impact, economic impact, and arts impact. So it isn't just the arts, it's obviously getting that whole idea of what the creative districts are about. I won't go into specific detail on any of these I just want to make a couple comments, but I will say that if you look through the next, I think it's 47 pages, you have all of the comments that the panelists made on all of the grants that you see up there. So you can look if you have one specific one, like why didn't Ord or Grand Island or whatever get it? You can look through the comments about the pros and cons of their particular grant. There had to be a cutoff point because we only had $1 million. I will say that it is definitely something that we pointed out or the panelists pointed out, when you have things like several programs, you can see are part of the SWAN, like Ogallala and Fremont and Columbus. The SWAN is the sculpture walk across Nebraska, which is a statewide program. So when you have programs that are trying to cooperate with other programs or be a part of a program, that's, you feel good about the fact that they're collaborating. Sydney is another really good example. It's a movable outdoor stage they wanted, and they are going to share that movable outdoor stage with Potter. Potter Tin Roof Creative District is our smallest creative district in the state. It's a town, and somebody correct me, of what, 300 people at the most. It's a tiny little burg out there that is amazing that they even came up with putting together a creative district, and they're working with Sydney. So that kind of cooperation is always, that collaboration is always a plus. Questions on this? Again, there had to be a cutoff, and you can see 76% is a pretty high total, a high percentage. And it's not that the others were bad. We just had to cut somewhere.
I'll just add that coming to testify tomorrow are representatives from Auburn, who will speak to the fact that because we didn't have enough money, they'll have to pause their incubator space and commercial kitchen. From Kearney, from Tecumseh, from Grand Island, and from Brownville, all speaking not only about what the Creative District program has meant to them, but what development grants would mean to them if there was enough funding, and that should make quite an impact.
Any questions?
Everything, this is Clark. Everything at the top is a slam dunk.
Yes, they're the ones at the top. You can see the totals over on the right side, Clark.
Yeah.
They all asked for $100,000 except for York, which asked for 95. So there's a few dollars left over, but basically the million went.
All right.
Those 10.
I just didn't want to inaccurately jump the gun and tell people hooray and then find out, whoops.
Have they been notified yet?
Not until this vote.
Yeah, we have to vote on this. So after we vote, then they'll be notified.
Awesome.
Okay. So we need to have a motion, and I'm going to assume, Clark, that you might want to make the motion since there's a town up there that you represent.
I would love to make a motion.
Okay, would somebody like to second it?
I will, Karen.
Go, Karen. Yeah.
All right, thank you. We'll take the vote, please.
All right, Sherry Hofshire.
Yes.
Brian Bosford.
Yes.
Zachary Cheek.
Yes.
Brenda Davis.
Yes.
Michelle Dudley.
Yes.
Crystal Dunning.
Yes.
Anna Goranson.
Yes.
Tom Gross.
Yes.
Karen Harris.
Yes.
Julie Jacobson,
Yes.
Clark Colterman,
Yes.
Mark Laughlin,
Yes.
Clark Roush,
Yes.
Jeannie Salerno.
Yes. Great, thank you, everybody. And let's hope we can get the money that we're asking for so we can have double that next year. All right, let's move on to teaching artist roster. Brian, you were chair of that.
There we go. Yeah, that was a really fun experience. We met with quite a few, excuse me, I've got a cold, so I'm going to talk quick. We met with all the artists you see on the screen there. I just chaired the meeting and kept the conversation going, and our panelists made recommendations. Two of the artists on the list did not get recommended as teaching artists. Everybody else did. I don't know if I have much else to say before I start coughing at you.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Thanks, Brian. Sorry you're not feeling well.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have much to say.
That's fine. Going on to the touring artist roster, Mark? You must be on mute, Mark. Mark's still with us?
Yeah, they still have.
Mark? Yeah, okay, we'll come back to him. Let's go on to creative aging art program roster. Anne?
Yeah, we have a lot of new artists in the creative aging arts program. This group of artists is a little bit different than the AISC artists that Brian was just speaking about. We have a panel meeting, and those artists we expect to kind of come fully ready to participate on a statewide roster. The creative aging arts program, we actually offer training before they come onto the roster. And Carolyn Albrecht, who is a professor at Wayne State College and an artist and educator herself, helped coordinate and lead a series of training sessions. And we went through curriculum plans for each of these artists. The main thing I wanted to share about this group is that we went to a lot of trouble to find artists all around the state. With this particular program, we have found that it's best to have artists who live in the different regions where they're going to do residencies. And so we're really pleased to have artists from Kearney and Chadron and McCook and so forth, as well as some more artists from Omaha and Lincoln. But anyway, it's a great group of new artists. Most of them are visual artists, but we also have a couple of writers and a theater artist, Janice Franzak, in the group. So we're pleased to expand the CAP artist roster.
Great. Any questions of anyone? Good. Good, because I know that program is very popular, so that's great to see you're getting so many new people. Okay, Mark, are you back with us? All right, then let's go on to individual artist fellowships. Megan?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so this program is also a little different, and we've already had approval of this program recipients through the NAC Financial Committee, and so this is a happy report to all of you that you get to witness, but you don't have to vote on it. So every year we have an individual artist program that rotates between different disciplines, and this year we focused on visual artists, and then we have 3 out-of-state jurors make this selection. And so as you can see, I think it's in tab 3. You can read the bios of each of the each of these artists on the left-hand side of this slide, and see an image or two of their work if you would like more information about them. But as you can see, we have almost every artist here is a new artist that has never received this award before. And we have artists from across the state too. And we have artists in all different types of visual art. We have fiber art, photography, printmaking, installation, paper making, and so it's just a really cool way to see what artwork is being created in the state. And basically what they have to do for this program is apply with the work that they've created, and then the jurors, of course, base their opinion off of the work that they've created and the work that they intend to continue doing based on their artist statement. And then they have a year to spend the funds, which are relatively low, but it is a good way for them to be recognized and be able to work towards their professional development. So there are some limitations as far as what they can use their funding on, and a lot of artists use the time and will do an artist residency or that sort of thing, plan for an exhibition, travel their exhibition, or create new work, that sort of thing. And then at the end of the year, we get a final report. And that's always very exciting for me to go through and read what everyone has worked on. A lot of artists have really spectacular findings from after their IAF year. So please do go through and look at some of the awardees' bios in tab 3 and their pictures. And then the next slide is, it does include the images of the jurors. The bios are also included in tab 3. As I said, all of these are out-of-state jurors. We try to avoid any sort of preference as far as them recognizing or knowing the artwork of their peers or friends. So we had a curator, Kimmy Katata from Kansas City, a curator and gallery owner, Lauren Kennedy out of Memphis, Tennessee, and then a curator at Taller Museum in Philadelphia, Raphael Damast. And it was every year I'm just blown away by the outstanding comments that all of the jurors make about the arts that are happening in Nebraska. And this year was no different. They were just really encouraging, and several times mentioned how they hoped that they would be able to reach out to artists and get in touch with them about shows in their own gallery. So that is always the best outcome. And let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Megan. All right, let's go back to that touring artist roster. Mark, are you on with us now? If not, Rachel, could you jump in and tell us what we're looking at?
Absolutely. So we held a panel, much like the AISC roster artists, for the touring program. And just a little background, the way the touring program works is that artists apply to be on the roster and go through the panel process, and then organizations can hire those artists off of the roster, and the grant goes directly to that artist fee. It's also a very easy application for the organization hiring them because the artist goes through that panel process. This year we had 4 applications, and the panel recommended 2. One is Dueling Divas. They're actually going to be changing their name because the nice thing is they hired an agent and that name is already in use somewhere. So they will be changing their name, but also Novak and Har. who have done a lot of work in the Omaha Lincoln area, and we're very excited to see them on the roster. They were actually on a few years ago, and they dropped off around COVID. They didn't tour and they wanted to go off the roster, and now they're coming back. So we're very excited to have them back.
Okay, any questions? Thank you, Rachel. Next item then under grants is the reallocation of unused grant awards. Michael?
Yeah, just a little bit of housekeeping. When we have grant awards approved and for whatever reason, they don't use the funds, we have to have a vote by the council to reallocate the funds back into the general fund, as it were. And so we've had two that have need to be dealt with. If you remember, the Summer Arts Festival has ceased operations, and we're not able to use the grant fund from last year. And so we need to have those funds, $7,500 returned to the general fund. And also Columbus Arts Council has ceased operations last summer, and they were awarded a grant that needs to be voted on to return. So we just need a simple motion to vote. I don't know that anybody has a conflict of interest with either of these. And I don't know that that's an issue if you're returning the funds anyway. So we just need a motion to return these, reallocate the funds back to our general grant funds.
I move.
Thank you. Jean moves. Is there a second?
I second. Clark.
Thanks, Clark Holterman. All right, vote.
Sherry Hofshire,
Yes.
Brian Botsford,
Yes.
Zachary Cheek,
Yes.
Brenda Davis,
Yes.
Michelle Dudley,
Yes.
Crystal Dunning,
Yes.
Janet Goranson,
Yes.
Don Gross,
Yes.
Aaron Harris,
Yes.
Julie Jacobson,
Yes.
Clark Holterman,
Yes.
Mark Laughlin, Clark Roush,
Yes.
Jeannie Salerno.
Yes.
Okay, floating deadline report.
I will just, we don't have a slide for it, but it is in your packet, and I'll just comment real quickly on it, that on tab 3, pages 74 and 75 of your packet, you see the floating deadlines that we have granted since the last council meeting, and you'll see that it was a very fruitful period of time. A number of different floating deadline grants have been awarded, which has been really great to see that people are back and doing these programs, these projects. And that was a large part of why we transferred funds from 326 to 327, so that the funds would be out there in the field doing some good. And we can only hope that that will continue, and that we'll continue to have the funds to make these great things happen. And if anybody has any questions about them, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, it's just there for your information.
Okay. Okay, no questions. We'll move on to reports and discussion items. And first of all, I'd like to thank everybody who donated to the special ask that we had so that we could have the staff all go to a nice lunch at a nice restaurant. And I hear that they had a good time and enjoyed it. And it was a way of showing our appreciation. It was something that apparently had been done back in the past, and Mark mentioned it, and we tried it again this year. So like I said, it was a special donation from you, and we appreciate it. With that in mind, we do regularly have an annual ask for you to the NAC DC fund, because as you know, there are some things that can't be taken out of state funds by legal law. And so those are some of the things that we can cover through NAC DC, and you've seen enough of financials to know that there's a great many of those that are covered from that. So you'll be getting a letter from Mike and I sometime in the near future about this year's cycle of anything that you can give, we really, really appreciate it. It is, well used. The second thing is.
Can I just jump on that?
Yeah.
I just want to echo what Sherry had said about thanking you very much for making that happen. And I speak on behalf of the staff when I say that we had such a wonderful time knowing that it was due to your support and that you were so encouraging in putting that together. The staff works very hard every day, as you all know, and it really felt good to have that time together. You'd think I'd have pictures of the event, know that we all had smiles on our faces. And if you got the Christmas email, that staff picture was taken at the event there at Les Bouillons. And again, we had a great time and we thank you very much.
Okay, then moving on, the State Arts Awards are now set for next October 10th. And they'll be in the afternoon at the Capitol with the reception following at the governor's residence. The nominations are open until you can see May 15th. So if you know of anybody in your area that, there's a number of things that can be nominated for, make sure that somebody nominates them if you think there's somebody that's deserving. But there is one award that we need to talk about as a board, and that's an award called the Leonard Thiessen Award that was set up specifically for our board to decide on, whereas all the other nominations are decided on by a committee that looks at all of them. And this award was set up, and I don't know how many years ago, if you know that for sure. It's a special award given by the council to an individual for extraordinary service to the arts of Nebraska. Now, it has been expanded many years. It's not just an individual, it also has been a couple. It also, I believe, is there one where there was, yes, there was an organization. This is a list of those that have gotten it in the past, and you'll see there's a few places where it wasn't awarded a few years. So I'm asking you to, it's really, I don't want to say loosey-goosey, but it's somebody who's really made a difference, but doesn't fit the other categories. If you know people who specifically fit the other categories, that would be the place to be sure to nominate them, because those guidelines are much more specific. This is for somebody who has done extraordinary service to the arts, but doesn't necessarily fit those other categories. Is that, I don't know how other to say it.
Yeah, this is one of those, you know it when you see it.
Yeah.
Somebody deserves this award, you just know it, because their lifetime devotion to the arts of Nebraska just stands out. And it is something that, as Sherry mentioned, the council has given in the past. We didn't do it in 2023 as we were reevaluating the entire Governor's Arts Awards process. But we did want to bring it up that this is something that the council can do if they so wish. And I'll hand it back to you.
Well, and there are some people on that list that you might find their names, or you will find their names on some of the other categories. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't be up for this. So with that in mind, I ask you to put on your thinking caps and see if you can come up with anybody. If so, send the name to me. We'll need the names by the June meeting, because during our executive session at the June meeting, we'll have to decide, so that it'll be done before the October awards. It'll have to be in place.
Do we need to fill out a written nomination if we want to recommend it, or just?
No, I'd say just send an email to Sherry saying who you think should get it and maybe why. And again, this is a very informal amongst the council award.
Yeah, it would be helpful to have
Yeah.
a couple of statements
Sure.
as to why,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, what they've done.
Chances are you
Chances-
shouldn't have to describe too much.
Right, I was gonna say, if you look at the
Well,
names that are up
good
there,
point.
most of us, you know, if it's somebody that's really done a lot, we probably already know who they are, but it still would be helpful. Are there any questions on that? Okay. Then moving on, that's all I have for my report. It's all yours, Mike.
Okay, now you can back up to the last one there. This one that Sherry and I will both share, and that is just to remind you that, we discussed earlier that the next council, or not the next one, but the council meeting in September would be held in conjunction with the status of the Creative District Assembly as it was last year. And this is the information as it stands today, about that, so we would let you guys know so that you can start to plan for it. It will be a 2-day event on September the 11th, which is Thursday. We'll have the council meeting at 2 p.m. at the Norfolk Arts Center. Then afterwards, there'll be a tour of the River Point Creative District. The folks at the Art Center already have planned a reception for an art exhibit that they have going on at that time. And so we will just enjoy that reception. And then we are looking at working with the folks there in Norfolk for some evening entertainment. Either there in that plaza that you see on the screen, or perhaps indoors, or maybe both. So we are still working on that component of the event, but that's what Thursday makes up. We have a block of hotel rooms if you would then want to stay over until the assembly on the 12th. And the actual location of that still being worked out in the downtown Norfolk area. It will involve workshops, panels, and speakers, just as it did this last time. There will be entertainment 2 or 3 times during the day. And then, of course, we are going to be bringing back 2 of the things that were most successful about the assembly that we did this last year. One being the Taste of the Districts and the Cretus Awards that we handed out last year. That's the plan at this point. And if you have any questions or suggestions, we'd be glad to hear them. Otherwise, that's it. Oh, that's that part of my report. Okay.
You have more in your report.
I have
Mike.
more.
You got a lot more.
Oh, well, part of it I already gave when Lance and I talked about the legislative season. I put this slide together not knowing how much Lance was gonna talk about Arts Advocacy Day, just some of the other images from the day. And the thing that strikes me the most is that the Capitol needs a new color scheme because it's very mustardy. But other than that, you can see from this that there was a really good response to the day, and you have on the screen there 1, 2, 3, 4. I know that there's a 5th one. 5 state senators, and so there was a really good response to the Arts Advocacy Day. And in fact, down there in the lower left-hand corner, you can see Megan and I talking with Senator Von Gillern. He brought his entire staff to the breakfast, which was really great. They had a great time. He was very engaging, and I think that was very good. Up left, you have Senator Guert, Senator from District 7. And then down in the right-hand corner, you have Senator Brandt and Senator Duncan. And so again, just a really good response to that, to the entire day. That's all I have to say about that, unless anybody had any questions about Arts Advocacy Day. What else am I supposed to talk about?
Legislative update.
Yeah, and as I said, Lance and I covered that a great deal during his section. I'll be glad to answer again any questions that people might have had formulated since we talked. Otherwise, can you go back to my slide so I can see what else I'm supposed to talk about? Oh, okay. I have a slide for this. If you can go forward to that's one. Just a real quick update, and I may ask Megan to step in as well. Just to update you on some of the things that are happening with the I-80 Sculpture Garden 50th anniversary in conjunction with next year's the 2026 US 250 or semi-quincentennial, as we say when we have a mouth that works. There's been a lot of developments recently. And we are working closely with our friends from the Department of Transportation, the Department of Tourism, many of the communities throughout the state to put together a program that will involve a rededication of the artwork from 1976. We are working with the governor's office to hold that rededication ceremony at the Seward exit, where Arrival is currently installed. And that then, and I may ask Clark Coulterman to step in real quickly. Clark has agreed to help us organize with the other communities along the I-80 corridor. Clark, you have an upcoming meeting that you might want to mention in case people would like to chime in on it. Should have prepped it. I'm going to turn to you, Clark. I'll just mention the other things while I wait, is that Megan has been working with the folks at the Nebraska State Historical Society to find archival materials. We are communicating with them about creating 2 exhibits, one that would be on semi-permanent display for the summer next year at the Nebraska Historical Museum, and then a touring one that would go to the different communities along the I-80 corridor. And a lot of the work that she's been doing will help provide the content for that exhibit. We've also, since that time, had a lot of input from people who were around at the time, including Clark Coulterman, who provided a number of programs and clippings from the time. Clark, are you there now?
He's just muted.
Oh, okay. Clark, if you want to chime in about the things that you provided and what you're doing with the communities.
Clark, you gotta unmute yourself, sir. I can see his mouth moving.
Can you unmute him? Here. Oh, okay.
Mike, this is Julie Jacobson. While we're waiting for Clark to figure out his microphone.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
No, go ahead, Julie. You go first.
I was going to ask you, have you contacted Nebraska Tourism to try and get this 50th year anniversary on their passport program?
Yeah.
Funny that you should ask.
Yeah, the passport program's a real, I was at the travel conference for 3 days, and I'm the Visitors Bureau chairman for our committee here in Seward. And the passport program is they're very protective of it. I thought it would be a perfect thing for it. And they're going to try and incorporate it somewhere or put it on, I don't know. They weren't real. I mean, they're very protective of how they want to do their passport program, but we are involving tourism. I wanted to have it. I thought it would be great to have it at each one of those rest stops, but that, they have 70 on the passport program, and that's the 70 they do. Now, this last year they did an extra bonus 12 or something like that. And I don't know if they're going to do that bonus this year. They just announced the 70 of the 300 plus requests. They had 70 that they selected for the passport program. And, so there are a lot of disappointed people already. And so for us to get in there too, we're working on it. Let's just put it that way. We are working with the visitors bureaus at these 8 rest areas as well. And then also the creative arts district people. And so we're trying to figure out, when they did this 50 years ago, it was a 1-day dedication at each one of those stops involving the lieutenant governor and the National Guard and whatever, the dignitaries, in a helicopter jumped from all 8 to all 8 of them, and they're all dedicated in 1 day. This year we're looking at maybe spreading it out over 3 days, just because of logistics and everything else. Maybe because we're older, I don't know. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, let me just add on to what Clark said. And if you saw the paper, you saw that actually this year they have created a creative districts tour as part of the passport program, which is very exciting news. after working with our new friends at the Tourism Commission. That is something that we are looking to create going forward or keep going forward. And they are looking at creating a special passport tour program next year for the sculpture program.
Yeah.
And so that is in the works. We have a meeting with them next January to talk about the details of that.
Yeah, a lot to
And,
do. The other thing is we do have a meeting. We are going to have a Zoom meeting, and you're all welcome to join us if you want on the 14th of March to start to hash out some of this stuff. It's at 2:00, and just trying to get these people to get it on their agenda, get it on their back burner so they can start thinking about it. Interestingly, there are people in almost every community that were around then that are still there, that are still here. And so they have a kinship to it as well. And so, yeah, we're all excited about it. And I think it's going to be a fun thing.
Along those lines, we have identified 8 different people who were there at that time who are willing to be interviewed as to their participation and what the program meant at that time to the people in their community, including we are in indirect talks with the artist, and Megan, you'll have to help me. The artist who did
Irma's Desire.
Desire in Grand Island is willing to come back to the state to be part of the festivities and to be interviewed. And what's his name, Megan?
John Raimondi.
John Raimondi, thank you. And if you remember, that was the one that caused all the controversy in the Grand Island community, and because people weren't quite sure what Irma's Desire was, remembering that it was 1976. And the whole idea of conceptual art in rest areas was rather new to everybody. Megan, while you're up and running, do you want to tell everybody real quickly what we're doing with the conservation of the artwork?
Yeah. So last year we had a conservation group out of Nebraska come to review all of the artwork and provide us with a conservation assessment. Based on that, we are going to move forward with hiring a conservation group out of Kansas City, Zaner Conservation, we hope. And for that, we have applied for a Cooper grant, a grant through the Cooper Foundation, and we will know fairly soon what the outcome of that is. We also know that in tandem with the conservation of that, which should happen at some point this summer, there's another group who is making a strong effort towards adding all of these sculptures to the National Historic Register. And so we're hoping that will be something we can announce soon, and with the dedication especially. Another thing that was on the Cooper grant were including signs at each of the rest stop, additional signage with a QR code, so taking it up to the 21st century, so people can see our website, and also so that we can update on our website all of the events that are happening that Clark is helping us with, and at all of the different sites along the interstate and at the other sculpture gardens in Nebraska. So we're hoping that we can make that more visible to all of the visitors of the rest areas through those signage opportunities.
Megan, question, please.
Yes, Clark.
Is the conservation group going to do all of the sculptures or just selected ones?
Just the selected ones that need conservation. Thankfully, none of the sculptures have any structural issues. So most of what the conservation work is doing is cleaning and providing some maintenance so that they can just continue looking nice. It's so that preventative kind of maintenance for 2026.
Thank you.
There's two other elements of this I want to real quick mention, and that is that We are also working with the folks who are looking to put these on the National Register, and that group of people includes Art Thompson from Cooper Foundation, who was the original project manager for it, the original architect, Dan Worth, and Lori Richards, who heads up the Ross down there. And on their committee is our very own Suzanne Wines. So it's been fun to work on that project with them. I just got an email a little bit ago from Clay Smith, who was one of those people who was there at the time and has been a font of information. And he informed me that he had a conversation with the folks from Mona, and they are interested in being part of the project, taking photos of the current pieces and then working with the information that they have from the 1976 about the artists and doing a retrospective, I guess you'd call it, exhibit about the project. So an awful lot of irons in the fire, and if you are interested in getting involved, Clark has taken on quite a bit, and we appreciate very much you're willing to do so. And I think he could probably use some help. So let me know.
The Semi-Quincentennial Commission meets tomorrow. I think it's at 1 o'clock is our meeting. And so I'm going there for a couple other things. And so I don't know if they're going to bring this up at all. I don't know. We'll see.
And thank you, Clark. Actually, the meeting is at Megan 3 or 3:30. We've been invited to sit in on it.
I think it's 3:30.
Is it at 3?
Yes, it's at 3:30.
Okay.
It's at the Historical Society there on,
Yeah. Or that's where they've always had them. I assume that's where we're going.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, then Clark, Megan, Mike, anything else on the sculpture garden that we haven't covered that you want to bring up? Or does anybody else have questions?
No. I just remember the one thing I do remember in on the Irma's Desire artist, Irma was his mother.
Yes, at least that's what he said.
Yeah.
No, Clark is right. It was John's mother, Irma, because I worked with him and Art Thompson in Grand Island at the time.
And I know
it was funny because he was honoring his mother and there was all this stupid controversy.
I know. Yeah. In fact, Tom Allen did a story on it in the World Herald. He found him in the Holiday Inn in Kearney and did a story on it. So yeah, tried to quash the theme, but anyway.
Yeah. By the way, Karen was another one of those people who was involved back then and has been willing to be part of that interview process. So lots to do.
Okay, it's really, really exciting. And thank you to all of you involved in it. Then let's go on. Are you done? You have anything else? Okay, then let's go on to program reports. Poetry Out Loud. Anne? Anne, you must be on mute. Okay.
Do you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So we have a change this year with our Poetry Out Loud state finals. The big change is that we've done it in Lincoln for 19 years, and this year it's going to be at Midland University in Fremont. We've always done it at the Sheldon. They were not available on a Sunday, and we knew we wanted to hold the event on a Sunday this year. We're also excited that our new state poet, Jewel Rogers, is going to be there, do a presentation, perform some of her own poetry. And I would encourage any of you who aren't too far away to come and join us in the theater at Midland. We have 9 schools. You can see the list there from all around the state. It's a nice group of state finalists. It's always fun to see these kids, students, perform their poetry, recite their poetry. And once again, Matt Mason, the one and only, is going to be our MC. And Matt knows how to make any kind of event a lot of fun and keeps it rolling along. So yeah. So if you're interested, please come over. The Kimmel Theater is right on the campus of Midland University. Parking is a lot easier than at UNL. There's plenty of free parking. So we're looking forward. Joshua has, I should shout out to Joshua, who's also been doing a huge amount of work preparing for this event. And also to Lance, who provided trophies. We have beautiful trophies and certificates for all the students. So should be a nice event.
Don't make the mistake I made, guys, which is there was once something at the Kimball Theater in Fremont, and I thought it was at the Kimball Recital Hall in Lincoln, and I drove down from Elkhorn.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh.
No, we're trying to stress to everyone, it is in Fremont for the first time ever. So yeah. And the weather should be nice this weekend once we get through this craziness of today and tomorrow.
I meant to mention earlier, the wonderful thing about Jewel is not only how talented she is as a poet and as a performer, her background is in real estate development and community development. And she spoke quite eloquently at the Arts Advocacy Day on those topics and has agreed, and in fact, has already submitted a letter in support of our appropriation request based upon the value of the Creative District program for both real estate and community development. So she's quite an asset, not only to the state, but to the Arts Council and the Creative District program.
Nice. Okay, any questions on Poetry Out Loud? Anne, is that all?
That's it, unless there are questions. Yeah.
Okay, then why don't we just continue with you for the creative aging? That's, at least that was next on mine. Is there a slide?
Was there something, I didn't have anything else I was showing in slides about the creative aging arts program.
Then we'll go on to the creative districts. Rachel?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, just a little update about creative districts. You've heard a lot about them today, so I'm not sure how much new I'm going to be able to tell you. But the map here on the screen shows our officially certified districts. We're up to 34, which has been really interesting because in talking with the testifiers that we're asking to come in tomorrow, we're all thinking back to 2 years ago and how there were 6. And now we're at 34. So it's been really interesting to kind of look back over that. Next slide. These are the districts that are in process. What we're starting to see now is that at the beginning, there was a lot of interest from small rural communities. What we're starting to see now is the urban communities. Well, we have a couple of districts in Omaha, one in Lincoln, that is now starting to pick up a little bit. So we're starting to see interest from the Old Market in Omaha, Little Italy in Omaha, some of those areas. So it's starting to gain traction with the urban community, which is interesting to see. Next slide. And this is an example of the information that we distributed to the legislators during Arts Advocacy Day, showing them all of the districts and all the communities that are involved in the program, and that anticipated support that we need because of the development grants, because we're asking the communities, the creative districts, to think big and to think about big projects. And so they need money to be able to do that. And the annual reports that we're getting in from the districts are showing the events that they're holding, and really telling that story of why the program is so important. You'll see the quote there from Holdridge about the new businesses that are coming into their community because of the work that they're doing, and it's really exciting to see. And that's really all the updates that I have, because I feel like everything else has really been covered. So unless there's any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Then I also, Talisa, do you have something on here about Creative Districts of Nebraska series?
The poster series, Talisa, are you well enough to be able to talk about that?
I'm here. I just hold on one second. just that I'm not turning on my camera. I've been ill, and so trust me, I don't think any of you want to see me right now. It's well underway, our deadline for the 6 artists that we have. So we have 4 artists from creative districts around the state that have created posters, and they are Norfolk, Grand Island, Chadron, and Castle and Cathedral District in Omaha. And then 2 of the artists, Flatwater Free Press, Nebraska Journalism Trust, wanted to do a little something different. And they created posters of images of Nebraska at large, and that is Rena Hernandez and Sarah Rowe. All I could say is that the images look really great, and the deadline for the images to be finally done is the 21st of March. And so for the next board meeting, I'll have the images together for everybody to view. But keep a lookout for those, and we should have posters for sale this year too. We're still working out arrangements on that and trying to get it finalized, but we're hoping to do that as well. And that's all.
It's mentioned that the genesis of this was from the Flatwater Free Press. They wanted something that they could offer to new subscribers and donors as a premium. So we really left it in their court as to how and where the posters were disseminated. The big difference this year is that we have negotiated to be able to allow the creative districts to be able to sell the posters so that they'll get a lot more of them out into the public. Making sure that we get a cut of that to the artists. So that you should see more of these posters out in the public this time. And Talisa has done a wonderful job getting very talented artists. She mentioned Sarah Rowe, Wadey White did cathedrals, and the rest of them have just escaped my brain right now. But very talented artists, and they should be very nice posters.
Great, sounds exciting. Thank you. Okay, then the folk and traditional arts, Elizabeth?
Yes, hello.
I don't know that we have one. Now we can move forward. Thank you for the work you're doing, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I can give you just a very quick verbal update. We had several breakout groups for Arts Advocacy Day, and Folk and Traditional Arts was one of those groups. We had several representatives from the Benson and Castle and Cathedral Creative Districts sit at that roundtable discussion. And we talked about identifying folk and traditional artists in their districts and making a folk and traditional artist roster. Something else that I've been working with this year is we've identified a master and apprentice artists for our pilot apprenticeship program. And they are going to be working with star quilts, Native American star quilts. And then another component to look out for is in January 2026, we're going to hold our second biennial art exhibition at the Fred Simon Gallery, featuring folk and traditional artists. So the first exhibition was in 2023. It featured 10 different artists from across the state. And it was really an overview about what folk and traditional art can be, a very broad spectrum. This year, we're going to focus on two to three really outstanding folk and traditional artists in our state. So that's my update.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right, then let's move on to public art. Megan?
All right. Yeah, so I wanted to give a few updates about current projects. This one is a recently installed project at the UNO HNK Reach building, which is obviously a research center at the UNO. It's student based, and also they do research on movement and how people grow up and can move throughout the aging process, from children up through all different ages and all different abilities. And so the committee wanted to somehow honor that in the artwork. And so they selected this artist, Lori Hepner, who uses light painting. And this is a unique methodology. It uses light and movement and a certain shutter speed to capture the color and the light in a really interesting way. So as part of her project, she came to Omaha and had light painting sessions where she would use people in the community. And you can see those people in all of these photos, from children to people who are doing research and university students and athletics. And so there are several different floors, and all of the floors have artwork. There's 20 pieces in total of different sizes and installed throughout the building. So people can interact with the different elements that are portrayed and done within the building. So if you get a chance to go see it, or even look up Lori Hepner's work or on our database, and I can share the link to our database in the chat so you can see the complete collection of these works. And then if you go to the next slide, this is a recently selected finalist at the Eastern Nebraska Veterans Home, which is in Bellevue. And the committee, which also included veterans who live in the Veterans Home, made this selection as members of the committee. And Richard Harrison was one of the finalists and is ultimately the artist who will be creating work in the space. This is a unique proposal where he kind of comes up with an idea and shows us how he might use the space, but he's actually, like the last artist, going to go spend time with the people in the building to create artwork that is really pertinent and exciting to them. So he'll work with the residents and the staff at the Eastern Nebraska Veterans Home to select the imagery and help define the mural. So this is just a sample of what it could look like, but we're really excited to see the outcome of that, and always excited to see when people can be a part of the art creation, which is something Richard does very well. Richard Harrison is an Omaha artist. He is based in South Omaha, and you might know him from the South Omaha murals and also the Central Nebraska Veterans Home in Kearney. And that's all that I have, unless there are any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Other business. One thing we need, the dates are there and they're in your packet. In June, we will be meeting here in the NAC office. Then in September, we'll be out in Norfolk that Mike already talked about, and December is virtual again. But does anybody have any other business before we vote to adjourn? Okay, then I need a vote for adjournment. Oh, you
I
all
so move.
I thought you all wanted to stay around all day. Thank you, Clark K. Is there a second?
Second, John.
Thank you, John. Cindy?
All right, Sherry Hofstetter,
Yes.
Brian Botsford,
Yes.
Zachary Cheek,
Yeah, I think so.
Brenda Davis,
Yes.
Michelle Dudley,
Yes.
Crystal Dunning,
Yes.
Anna Goranson,
Yes.
John Gross,
Yes.
Karen Harris,
Yes.
Julie Jacobson,
Yes.
Clark Colterman,
Yes.
Mark Laughlin,
Yes.
Mark Roush,
Yes.
and Jeannie Salerno.
Yes.
Thank you all very much, and I look forward to seeing you in June, if not before, and let's hope that we have good legislation happen in between, and everybody stay safe from the wind and whatever storm